Randy, and back to the phone lines. Next, BJ, listening in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hi, BJ.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I listen to your program all the time, and I hear people ask, and I know I've heard it probably 20 times, but how does God, when an infant or a child dies that hasn't had the opportunity to choose or however, how does he know, how does that work to decide whether they go to heaven?
Yeah, well, and the answer I typically give is an answer that I think is most prudent, which is that we ultimately leave those children in the hands of an infinitely just and infinitely merciful God. So I'm appealing to the nature of God. God is not looking for technicalities to keep people out of his presence, but rather he has done all so that we might be reconciled to him for time and for eternity, and therefore we can legitimately leave those children in the hands of a loving and just God. There are some biblical clues to what happens to children before they reach the age of reason. For example, David seemed quite certain that while his child had died, he would be reunited with his child in eternity. So there are glimpses, I think, that point to the reality that those children will, in fact, inherit eternal life. But different theologians and different theological constructs have answered this question differently. Some say that God looks down the corridor of time, sees what that person would have done had they lived, and chooses them on that basis. Others believe that children, like everybody else, are either doomed from the womb to certain destruction or are born to be the elect of God. So there are different answers that can be given to that question, but I think the most prudent response is simply to appeal to the nature of God, and I think we can rest in that nature. While we can't explain all things, we can say that God does all things rightly, and therefore Job knew that while he did not have an ultimate answer to his question, he could trust the very character and nature of the God who created him and allowed the difficulties to come to him in his life, and knew that that God would ultimately resolve all things in a just and righteous way.